Hey there, welcome to Talking Texas Politics with Calvin. I'm here with James Matlock today, and James is a candidate for Railroad Commission. And the Railroad Commission has a unique mission here in the state of Texas that a lot of people don't understand. But I'll let James introduce himself and tell us a little bit about the Railroad Commission. So go ahead, James.
Well, thank you for having me, Calvin. My name is James Matlock. I am running for Texas Railroad Commission. I am a fifth generation Texan. Um, I've worked oil and gas for the last 20 years, and you may be wondering why I say oil and gas when we're talking
Mm-hmm.
about railroads. The Railroad Commission was founded in 1891 to ensure fairness as far as access and tariffs on the rail lines. In the 30s, the state put the permitting of oil and gas industry on the Railroad Commission. In the 40s, when we started construction of the Big Inch, Little Inch, we got the pipeline industry. Then in the 90s, we got the coal mines. 2005, they gave the rail system to TxDOT. So we're no longer with the rail system, but we are the state's permitting regulatory oversight agency for the oil and gas pipeline and mining industries.
Well, very interesting. So you're running, you're not an incumbent.
No,
So what made you want to run for the Railroad Commission?
we can, like I said, I've worked oil and gas industry for 20 years. It has taken care of myself and my family. Um, we can do it cleaner and more efficient. We need a little more accountability when it comes to the environmental side of things. So, I'm just tired of typical bureaucracy, everybody passing the buck, nobody actually doing anything.
Oh, that's good. So where do you live at?
Nacogdoches, Texas.
All right. And now you've worked in the oil and gas industry. What's your role in the oil and gas industry?
Well, I've started out in the trucking service side of things. Then I went into landman work, title runs, leasing, things like that. And then I became an independent consultant, working on working independently with new startup companies and trying to help them get up and going.
Yeah. So um, oil and gas is pretty big in the state of Texas. Um, so I know how many commissioners are there, and then how big is the Texas Railroad Commission?
There's three commissioners. And it's a 6 year staggered term. So every 2 years, one person comes up for reelection. And the Railroad Commission is a rather large agency in Texas. I don't have exact number as far as employees go. We have the critical infrastructure, the pipeline inspections, uh, well sites, P&A, plug and abandon. We do a little bit of everything. Then the mining, plus when you go to your local gas station and you see the propane tanks, Railroad Commission also regulates the propane tanks at your local gas
Hmm.
station.
Oh, that is a lot. I guess I didn't realize that. And so um, there are three railroad commissioners, and you are running against
Jim Wright.
Jim Wright.
It's his cycle to come up. He's been on 6 years now, so it's uh, his time.
Okay. And now, how long has he been on the railroad commission?
Uh, I believe he served 6 years, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, okay.
This would be his first term.
So, what would be the first thing you would do if you were elected?
One of the first things I plan to do is expand Rule 40, which is the rule that pertains to uh, horizontal drilling, because, you know, back in the day when everything was vertical wells, used to be the 40 acres surrounding the wellhead was considered your pool for a unit. Now, with horizontal drilling, we can drill up to 3, 4, 5 miles. And they pay at the wellhead and at the end of the line, but people in between, a lot of times they're not getting paid the royalties on it. So we need to expand that to increase the leasing size to make sure everybody gets paid.
Hmm. Now I've heard a lot of talk about AI and Bitcoin mining and those sort of things. Now, those things are very energy uh, heavy.
Yes.
So, does Texas have the energy to be able to be expanding those sort of businesses the way that they are?
Currently, no. We there are things we could do to help increase the energy production and help make the AI data centers a little more self-contained. But that would be on the legislative side of things, not the railroad commission side. Now I know Bitcoin currently has uh, mobile generators where they go out, capture the flare gas, and use that on. They have their computers in Connex trailers, and they do it on site. So they're getting cheap energy there.
Hmm.
And
And now, what about the water? Now, I know I saw something today um, that a lot of these AI facilities use an enormous amount of water, and actually, water is a limiting factor in this general area. I mean, this
yes,
entire part of North Texas is does not have enough water for the growth that's coming. Um, and I know that oil and gas uses a lot of water. So, what can be done, or what can do to help us keep us from running out of water?
I'm glad you asked. I actually co-authored a resolution that we're trying to get before the Texas House. Basically, what it says is your AI data centers would have to use new technology that would cool their computer chips, and that when the water runs through, it pulls the heat out, and they can turn that into electricity to help bring them off grid some, or reduce or eliminate their draw on the grid. And then the oil and gas industry produces 588 million gallons of water a day. And, it takes roughly 7 million gallons just to frack one stage of a well. So you know, if the AI data centers took lessons from the oil and gas industry and dug reserve pits, the data centers use anywhere from 300,000 to 5 million gallons a day
Oh
to
wow!
keep their chips cool. But if they dug the reserve pits, 3 pits, 40 by 40 by 10, that would give them 300,000 gallons of storage, water storage, that we could recycle the oil and gas wastewater and deliver that for them to keep their chips cool. In addition to that, one on a 300,000 gallon per day data center, it would recycle it once per day. On the 5 million gallon, it would recycle several times, but when it goes through the technology to generate electricity, it's already cooling it down. So, it would, by the time it made it back through the system, it would already be cool enough to pull the heat out again. So, and that's ultimately what our resolution is about, trying to pull the data centers a little more off grid and uh, preserve our aquifers across Texas.
Well, so, how much water do you believe that would save?
It would save a lot, and in addition to that, the oil and gas industry, we inject it back into the ground, typically in a zone not capable of hydrocarbon production, so it's just locked away. And we could repurpose that water and use it for the AI data centers. And we need to do everything we can to preserve our aquifers for you and I, the municipal use.
Hmm. And so now it's been a few years ago. We had what we refer to as Snowmageddon. Um, and there was actually a storm named Uri or something like that
Yes,
they called it, but whatever that was. So Snowmageddon, we'll just refer to it as Snowmageddon. Um, there was a lot of dynamics in that. We had a lot of our renewable energy that wasn't functioning, but we also had some oil and gas centers that had some issues and couldn't get online, and maybe they couldn't get power, or they weren't on the emergency grid. Or so what has been done, or what could be done to make sure, because there was actually a pretty good loss of life in that particular storm.
yes.
So what can we do to prevent that from happening in the future?
There we still flare a lot of natural gas. One thing we could do is put natural gas powered generators in the field, which I've been trying to accomplish since 2018. And it's another one of those bureaucracy catch 22s. ERCOT won't buy the energy without a permit. PUC won't issue a permit without a contract to buy. So we were kind of stuck there. And that's one thing. But then, during Winter Storm Uri, got a call from a friend of mine who worked at a power plant. I drove 28 miles in the snow and ice. Wasn't sure why I had to go to this power plant. It was a biomass plant. They had no fuel wood. So, that power plant was down and was not operating, and the people out there was watching the news where, our fellow Texans were not surviving the storm, and they heard, they'd seen my post on Facebook, LinkedIn, everything else, and they called, said, "Hey, you need to come out here and get pictures." And I had friends working in the Permian Basin. I called one, asked him if he was going by a certain compressor station. He got me a short 5-second video of it. The natural gas was coming out just fine. Could there have been issues with different uh, natural gas pipelines? There could have been. Could have had some water in the line or something that uh, helped slow things down, or plug the separators or whatever. But I don't think the natural gas industry failed as bad as what the official report says.
Hmm. Now, what percentage of our grid is powered by renewables?
Last I heard, it was 25 to 30%.
So is that okay?
No, the renewable energy, our grid is designed for a push of energy. The renewables kind of lag and create lag in the system. So, could renewables be utilized? Yes, but I don't think that should ever be a priority energy sector. I think that should be the backup side of things. And, the batteries, they have a lot of issues other than, the lag and things like that, trying to get it into the grid once they start trying to pull. But, there's other issues surrounding the battery systems as far as software and stuff connected to China.
Mm. So now I know that the wind and solar has had a lot of tax breaks. I know they've had some from the federal government. I know they have some from Texas as well. I believe oil and gas has some tax breaks as well for high cost wells or something like that. So what, I mean, are we giving too much away in subsidies, if you will?
Yes, especially when it comes to the renewable side, typically to generate 10 megawatts, it takes a couple of hundred acres of land covered with solar panels. And most of the counties are giving property tax abatements on the property that has solar on it. And that's causing you and I to have to pay more in property tax to make up the difference.
Mm.
And excuse me, when we look at the oil and gas sector, there may be a tax incentive, but that's very limited on what the oil and gas industry get.
Okay. And so um, I was once unfortunate enough to be in the pathway of a number of pipelines, and I got to see how eminent domain is used. And doing a little bit of research, it seemed like there was a form that these companies got that said they were common carriers from the um, from the Railroad Commission. So, what's your thoughts on the use of eminent domain by these companies?
I'm not a fan of eminent domain. I believe in individual property rights. You know, the company should be able to work a deal with the property owner. And I've worked with property owners in the past who had small peach orchards, and they want the pipelines wanted to come right through the middle of the peach orchard. Well, it's we can bore underneath the peach orchard, not disturb anything. So, get your bore machine out and bore underneath instead of disturbing the peach orchards or property rights or anything like that. So,
Hmm. So, how do people get a hold of you if they want to learn more about you?
well, if you want to learn more about me, I'm on social media, Facebook, X, and YouTube, Matlock for Texas, and check out my website, Matlock for Texas. And if you want to give me a call, be glad to talk to you, 936-320-3031.
All right. Well, it seems like some of the stuff that you're discussing is just common sense stuff, but you know what they say, common sense isn't all that common anymore.
Yes.
But is there anything else you'd like to tell the folks?
I'm running as a true grassroots candidate, and I need your support. Uh, like I said, feel free to reach out to me via email or on the phone. And if you like what I have to say and what I've said makes you decide you might want to vote for me, tell your friends, family, and coworkers who you're voting for and why.
All right. Well, James, we certainly wish you the best of luck in your race, and we thank you very much for joining us here. And so I want to thank everybody out there for joining us today as well. So this is Talking Texas Politics with Cal. So God bless you, and God bless Texas.